It's a story we're all familiar with. Boy meets girl, boy gets girl, boy loses girl. But there's one difference today. I'm not going to talk about boys and girls. I'm going to talk about elves. I was doing a 2-year ethnographic study in a place called Second Life. Second Life is a digital platform built by a company called Linden Labs. The idea was this: they would build the platform, they would create a landmass, an atmosphere, and then invite users to come in and create content. As a researcher, that idea of human beings going into a world without boundaries and being able to do whatever they wanted to was fascinating. In Second Life, you first create an avatar. You can create any kind of avatar you like. And the folks who are interested in elf literature, think of Lord of the Rings, created elf avatars. There were drows, there were half-elves, there were wood elves, and yes, there were even a few orcs in the community. But the thing that's important to remember is, behind every character in Second Life is a real-life human being sitting at a keyboard somewhere. Yeah. So, about the time I had been in the community for a short while, 2 people entered. We're going to call them Amadi and Carlos. And they learned the ropes together, and they became very close friends. And after a few weeks, there was a big event in the elf lands, a dance. So these 2 ended up dancing together, and yes, they fell in love. And over the next few weeks, they shared hours together. They built a home together. They shared many details of their real life. And eventually, they got partnered. Amadi was a clever young lady. She wrote code, so she was quickly promoted within the elf hierarchy because she was very useful to the community. And eventually, she was asked to sit on the High Council, the governing body of the elf lands. All seemed to be going well. A few months passed by, however, and Carlo, because of real-life activities, was able to spend less and less time online. Then one day, Amadi signed on, came to the elf lands, but there was a big difference. Amadi was no longer a she, Amadi was a he. Now, playing cross-gender in virtual worlds and in virtual games and online is not unusual. But what was unusual in this case is oftentimes people disclose that they were playing cross-gender, and she had not. So I was very curious as to how people would react to this. And what I found in the elf lands as a researcher was no 2 people really had the same reaction to it. There was a broad range from some people believed that Amadi should be banned from the elf lands. Some people felt like she shouldn't be banned from the elf lands, but that she should at the very least be removed from a position of power and trust and authority in the hierarchy. Others said, nothing should be done. It's the internet. Caveat emptor, let the buyer beware. Or, as the New Yorker cartoon famously said years ago, on the internet, no one knows you're a dog. As a researcher, I found this very curious, this lack of uniform reaction. So I started digging a bit and trying to find out, what's a code of ethics for behavior in a digital world? And what I found was there was none. Not just for a digital world, but for any behavior online. We did not have a code of ethics. In other words, the technology had outpaced our ability to make good moral decisions about our behavior using that technology. I don't know if you know this person. Her name is Amani Araf. She was a blogger who was living in Syria. She wrote a very popular blog called A Gay Girl in Damascus. Homosexual behavior is illegal in Syria, frowned upon, and so she got quite a following because people were very interested in how a woman who was gay and out could survive in the culture. In fact, CNN did an email interview with her to sort of get insight into the issues she faced. She blogged once that she was concerned for her own safety because she thought security forces were following her. Then one day, she stopped blogging. It was reported that 3 armed men had taken her into custody. People were really frightened for her safety. A Facebook page sprung up, the Free Amani Araf Facebook page. Quickly, it got 10,000 followers. The U.S. State Department said they would inquire into her whereabouts and if she was safe. There's only one problem. Here's who was writing the blog. Tom McMaster, an American graduate student who was studying at the University of Edinburgh. Why did he do it? He said to draw attention to issues in the Middle East. What both of these cases, and dozens, hundreds others of cases, made me think about, again, was what kinds of ethical decisions are we making online? How are we using this technology? And it is our ability to sort of make good decisions keeping pace with all that's happening. In 2010, we founded the Center for Digital Ethics and Policy at Loyola in Chicago. The idea was this: to convene the conversation about digital ethics, but also to encourage researchers and other folks to do more good work on this digital ethics topic. Digital ethics generally falls into a number of different categories. Privacy is one. Think Edward Snowden and the NSA. What happens to our data online when people or organizations collect it, with or without our permission? Are we ever safe from hackers? How long does our information live online? Do we ever have the right to be forgotten? Then there's this idea of content sharing. Think Napster and Spotify, BitTorrent. Is it ever okay to file share online? And with music sharing services, do musicians ever really get a fair shake? And speaking of sharing, what about Uber and Airbnb? Is Uber really not a transportation company? Has Airbnb built a platform that allows people to systematically discriminate against people of color? Then comes the subject of robots and artificial intelligence. What would an ethical drone look like? Is it okay to put a robot in a senior center to help with caregiving? Is Watson simply a gimmick from IBM to sell H&R Block services? Or is turning over control of our lives to artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things going to eventually lead to our demise as humans? Then there's digital behavior, all the attacks that happen online, trolls outing people, giving out other people's personal information, doxing and swatting and flaming. This world of anonymous behavior where people attack and attack in ways that they would never do face-to-face or in the light of day. And what about accurate information? In these politically charged times, where can anyone go to find accurate information? What's fake news and what isn't fake news? We live in an era where people can create completely fictitious websites filled with completely fictitious stories and profit off of those. We live in an era where politicians can make completely fictitious statements in order to distract the public from serious policy issues. What would an ethics of accurate information look like? Would any politician agree to it? And what role do the service providers play in all this? They're the ones that often are passing on the fake news. How do we hold them accountable, and what role do they play? Finally, there's the area of access. Who has access to the internet and who doesn't? Who has access to high speed and who doesn't? Who can see the whole internet and who can only see a bit of the internet because of a politically imposed firewall? What's the relationship between freedom and access to technology? These are all important questions. And the real question comes up, what can we do? What do we do about all this? I think the answer is, first, we can become better informed. We can think about ways in which we can learn how learn about ethical decision making, how it applies to all these digital issues. We can hold accountable ourselves online. How do we behave online every day? How do we treat other people? And we can also help hold accountable to other people and organizations as well. I endorse a model of digital citizenship. Citizenship tells us that we have great freedoms, but with those freedoms comes some responsibilities as well. One of those responsibilities might be treating each other civilly. Recently, I wrote an editorial for USA Today asking for the large tech companies to hire chief ethicists who could help them negotiate ethical decision-making. These can't be people who only have a title. They'd have to be trained ethicists who actually have access to the executive suite. They could help executives make better decisions about the technology they're releasing every day. They could also harness the knowledge and experience of the many bright employees of these tech companies, who many of them also have concerns about how the technology is being used. Imagine a world where both humans and organizations treated each other in digital spaces with respect and honesty and kindness. Imagine a world where organizations and people were direct with each other and transparent. In such a world, a boy might meet a girl and be honest and direct, and all would be well in elf lands again. Thank you.